it. So the messaging does have to be clear and precise. The second thing that you obviously have to do with a fundraising campaign is to set timelines. Now, why we're saying this is because a lot of people tend to just have donation pages that just run, forever. Now, there's nothing wrong with that per se, but if you really want people to buy into your vision, it does help to sort of narrow things down and put specific timelines to them. So decide on a start date and an end date, obviously, or the duration of your campaign. Later on, we'll be sharing with you some case studies of campaigns that lasted like over a year and how much was raised. But that was part of the plan. It was the plan from the beginning to have a fundraising campaign, a year-long fundraising campaign to reach a particular target. But if it's project-based, sometimes you have, let's say, an idea to sort of an intervention fund. I know many of you know about the rise in domestic violence and rape cases that have been happening, or brought to light rather, recently. And there was a fundraiser last year around Mirabel Center. I don't know who remembers or who knows Mirabel Center. And the idea was basically, how can we give money to Mirabel so that they can do their work more effectively, right? And there was this whole thing on Twitter, donation pages springing up, and there was a deadline. There was a specific deadline to say, you know what, we wanted to raise X amount of money within this certain period of time. And definitely that helps to direct people to your messaging, helps give them a comfortability really around what you're doing. And then obviously you want to communicate the timeline to potential donors, which is in there. So again, how much time will I need? Be realistic when you're setting these timelines. And really take a look at what's happening in the fundraising space, the online fundraising space, and see how long does it take people to raise, 10 million naira or 50 million naira, and benchmark your project or your cause against that. One interesting tidbit, and this is globally really, there was some research done that showed that the last 3 days of the year are the times when people give the most. Now this is a global phenomenon, and I don't think we have really keyed into that, because of, I guess, our own orientation. But a lot of global nonprofits, that's what they do. The last 3 years of the year are their peak fundraising periods. And so what they tend to do is they start sometime in November or October, November, and start to make a lot of buzz around, end of the year giving, and sort of this call of like last chance, to give, last chance to be charitable. And those are things that you can key into as well to give that sense of urgency that is sometimes required. Lastly, in terms of my end of the presentation, is building a persuasive narrative. I think this is one of the most critical points in the checklist is what story are you telling? Make it unique and unpredictable. A lot of you have seen the messaging that has to do with, children's hunger. If you remember those UNICEF adverts that used to come out, with the fly on the child's face. And then there's a narrative too. If you go to like GoFundMe pages, you see some of them are so similar. Like there was one that I read recently that was talking about how this was in Latin America somewhere, and how they grew up poor and no mother and father. And the narrative, the way it was written, just wasn't compelling. It didn't move me to any sort of action, because it's a narrative that I've seen before, and I've also seen it misused. So how are you setting yourself apart from what's already out there? Because fundraising online has become competitive, especially on the peer-to-peer platforms, because your project is competing against another project. So you do have to stand out. Something to ask yourself along these lines is, are you solving a problem in an innovative way? And a lot of people think innovation is something new. It might just be a new approach to something that has already been done. So something to also keep at the back of your mind, that if you are doing something that's slightly different from how others are doing it, send that message across in your narrative. I was saying this earlier, that when you're building out this narrative, and what I mean really is your website and your fundraising page, when you're building out this narrative, create a sense of urgency. Let people relate with what you're doing. I'll give you an example. If you talk about the anti-bullying campaign that I wrote about earlier, I was bullied as a child. And when I thought of a case study to use, that was exactly sort of what my mind went to. And I can imagine that there are people that are like me who were bullied. So if I was writing a campaign around that, there's a certain way that I'll capture the language so that those who have experienced similar things will feel compelled to donate. So again, the question is, what is at stake here? People should read your narrative and think, what is at stake here? What will I miss if I don't contribute? Or what will I add to if I do contribute? A third thing to think about when you're building your narratives, be transparent. Tell people what the money is going to be used for. It's very critical. How will you update donors? So when people click that donate button, how are they going to know when you've done your work or when you've concluded your project? So you should be clear about how you are communicating. There are a lot of global giving campaigns where on the corner, and I wish I could show you the screen, but on the corner, when it asks, or it tells you the different donation levels, so let's say $100, $200, $300, it tells you, okay, if you're donating $100 today, we will send you monthly updates and a keychain, right? Because some people believe in rewarding donors. So how are you communicating to people who want to donate that you're going to get back to them at this particular time? And lastly, inspire action. Of course, that's what everybody wants from a good narrative, is that you want to be able to inspire people to act. And when I say act, I mean to donate, right? So whatever you've written on your page has to move people enough to get them to hit that button and put in their credit card information or have it linked to their PayPal account to execute that transaction. How are you moving people? What are the trigger points? So emotion is a very good thing people use in fundraising campaigns. Like I mentioned earlier, the reason why the UNICEF campaign sticks in my mind is because as I was growing up, seeing that child with a fly in the corner of their head, it stuck, right? And it definitely sort of moved something inside of me. I did donate once or twice, but after a while I realized, okay, that was their thing. That was how they were communicating the need that they saw from their own perspective. So all of these, what they essentially do is they make you hit that button.